Welcome everybody to a series of what's going to be basically recaps of the 6 years that this version of WCW has been in existence as we move everything over to TEW IX, starting when I'm done with recaps basically. And we're going to start from the beginning and actually basically the pre-YouTube history of the series, as basically the initial setup for this is I started just running a WCW save in TEW 2016 with, I forget what the actual database was at this point. But anyway, like I actually enjoyed it. So by the time I got the arcade, I decided to basically do a little recap and then start the series. And now here we are, basically, Jesus Christ, 5 years later, and we're still like doing the series, about to move things over to TW9. The basic setup is, Eric Bischoff is able to buy WCW, sets up the Big Bang. The only slight twist is, of course, Roddy Piper is the booker, not somebody else random. But yeah, that's basically it. So let's get started with the year 2001. Of course, the beginning of this is the world title scene, and we start out with a four-man tournament at the Big Bang, which has DDP defeating Canyon and Sting defeating Ric Flair, and then in a main event of a basically face versus face match, DDP defeats Sting and basically is sort of the face of the reboot. DDP's title reign is solid. He defeats Jushin Liger, basically coming in as a what's the word I'm looking for here, as a guest at Great American Bash, and then he defeats Canyon again at Bash at the Beach. But Scott Steiner, who has defeated Booker in basically two straight matches at Great American Bash at the Beach, defeats DDP to win the titles, started beginning a monster heel reign. He then takes on Sting, who, after losing the main event, not the main event, after losing the, world title decision match at the Big Bang, came back, defeated Vampiro, which I'll get back to in a moment, at Clash of the Champions 2001 in August. He then has two title shots against Sting. He beats, he loses them both, and then, loses them both, including at Halloween Havoc, which cements his dominance heading to Starrcade. But then DDP, basically makes his return, defeating, but then, Booker begins his long road back, which again, I went over. Basically loses to Steiner, Great Bash at the Beach, and he even loses the Canyon Clash of Shock, but he basically begins his comeback. He beats DDP in a face-to-face match at Havoc during the Starrcade title shot, and then which sets up the big Starrcade 2001, the first really big show of the era, which I'll go over basically at the end of the video. So that's the first sort of the first main event here is Booker T versus Scott Steiner in the main event Starrcade in Greensboro, North Carolina. This also leads to the sort of like first other big feud, which is Sting and Vampiro outside of the world title scene. Like I said, after losing the world title tournament to DDP, picks up some big wins, including a heated match against Vampiro Clash of Champions. But the feud reunites later in the year when after Sting's title match ends in chaos, Vampiro returns and attacks Sting. Basically, as part of that build after Halloween Havoc, Vampiro, sends Sting off the stage, and he, basically has a funeral for Sting. But then, of course, the lights go out, and he sends the Raptors to send the message. And this all sets up, basically what you'd expect, the big rogue match at Starrcade, Sting versus Vampiro in a battle of darkness versus redemption, which again I'll get to at the end of the video, which is just please set up for all these videos is I'll set up all the big matches for Starrcade in the build, and then I'll go over the actual Starrcade card. Then there's the U.S. title scene. She's not shown here, but Buff Bagwell was the initial holder of the U.S. title, winning in a battle royal. I don't want to say like basically just holding for a few months just because there's nobody else, but kind of holding it because there's nobody else. And then in the beginning of basically the fall, after through most of the summer was sort of there, Alex Wright beginning a bit of a push. No longer being sort of like the dumb Berlin gimmick, but just being himself. He actually shocks the world by defeating Bagwell for the U.S. title at Halloween Havoc. But then Shane Douglas, who's been on a tear, defeats Wright for the U.S. title in December 1, and this sets up a match against Billy Kidman for the U.S. title. Well, Alex Wright gets shunted off into the Horseman Feud, which I'll get to in just a moment. So yes, the Horseman Feuds begins way back in basically the beginning of the year, as it basically starts out with Dustin and Dusty returning to the ring for one match, really feuding with Flair and Jarrett, basically at a big tag match at Great American Bash. But then Jarrett turns on Flair, so we have a Dustin Jeff Jarrett feud for a couple months. Eventually, what happens is Flair, you know, turns has his feud with Shane Douglas because he's because of that old stuff. There's a blow off between them at a Clash of the Champions, which I think Douglas goes over. And then we get a big feud where Flair actually helps out Dustin, taking on the heel team of Jarrett, Canyon, and Shane Douglas, which leads to a big match at Halloween Havoc. But at that, we see the big turn as Flair turns on Conan and Dustin, leading to Flair, Jarrett, Canyon, and Douglas being the new Horsemen. This eventually gets Ray Jr. involved, which after he basically after having the tag titles since the Big Bang, after defeating Team Canada in the finals, after Team Canada basically jumped O'Hare and Palumbo for them, they lose to Team Canada at Halloween Havoc, and Kidman moves on to going after the U.S. title, and Rey Mysterio Jr. Basically helps out his old friends in the Filthy Animals, and then basically sorry, I'm saying too much, aren't I? But anyway, so this leads to Canyon being the big heel, the who has lost TV at the Big Bang, but has been on a roll since then. Has Jordan Lawler as his bodyguard. He is involved in a feud with Dustin Rhodes. Then we have Alex Wright, and what's what we're looking for here? Yeah, we have Alex Wright and Dustin Rhodes teaming up to take on Jeff Jarrett and Shane. Sorry, that's not the match. That's my bad. Yeah, we have Dustin Rhodes taking on Canyon, and then we have Alex Wright taking on Jeff Jarrett in big matches. And then of course Ric Flair takes on Rey Mysterio Jr. in the other big match, as Rey Jr. has been helping with the baby faces, and this is basically just a big match to have at Starrcade. And then, like I said, there is the tag title feud. As I said, basically how the titles went is is Team Canada jumped O'Hare and Palumbo to basically win the belts at the Big Bang, but then in the same night lost them to Ray and Kidman. Ray and Kidman held them to Halloween Havoc, where they lost them back to Team Canada. And now Team Canada actually is having their tag title match at Starrcade is against Jason Jen Finley, which is sort of like a weird, sort of like mismatched partners team, which got the title toss by winning a 6-man. So that's the tag title match. Meanwhile, eventually Palumbo and O'Hare and Jindrak Stasiak started, feuding as both parts of National Born Thrillers, leading to a big losers must never team up again. As a sort of like extra, Stacy Keibler it became Palumbo and O'Hare's manager, while Dom Marie debuts as Jindrak and Stasiak's manager, and that leads to sort of like a big, tag match at the pay-per-view. And then finally, there is the Cruiserweight division. So, Chavo defeats Shane Helms for the Cruiser title at the Big Bang. Taka then defeated Chavo Jr. for the title at Fall Brawl. And then Chavo won the title back at the Havoc. Tajiri debuted in the fall, eventually earning a tag title shot of his own at Starrcade. Well, the more interesting thing is after losing his last title shots to Chavo Jr. at Mayhem in November, Shane Helms appeared after DDP's match against Mike Sanders. It was sort of basically a quick squash to super kick the hell out of DDP and set up a feud with him. And before we get to the rest of the card, of course, there's been some other stuff going on. We've had the team of Reno and Cash, aka Kid Cash, teaming up at Silver City Rollers with Disco Inferno as their manager. Let's see here. Is there any? We have like young future stars like America's Most Wanted and Air Raid of AJ Styles and Air Paris being debuted as part of the undercard and other stuff going on. But now let's go over the Starrcade results. And Starrcade had 11,000 paid from Greensboro, North Carolina. It started with Tajiri winning the tag team titles. Winning the Cruiserweight title over Chavo Jr. in about 13 minutes with a 67C+. Not the biggest, greatest match ever, but earned a solid, C+ rating. Then we had the tag team gauntlet up next, which had a mix of established teams and underdogs. Silver City's rolled King kicked things off with a win over Courageous and More, aka 3 count, or 2 count, I guess, followed by a quick appearance from Smorn Smile and Ernest Miller, who had a quick pinfall over that team before being double counted out with the Mamluks. And then the Young Dragons of Jamie Noble and Yang defeated Air Raid and then defeated Skipper and Romeo to basically earn the title shot at the first pay-per-view of 2002. Little had some issues with Odyssey rating. And then Jeff Jarrett took on Alex Wright. And, after about 10 minutes, a guitar shot and a stroke gives Jarrett the win. B minus rating, better than you expect. And then we have Kazuhashi defeated Buff Bagwell. I don't say this match was not set up at all, but was sort of not set up at all. And Kaz actually gets the win in about 8 minutes. Basically, Buff Bagwell misses the blockbuster, and Kaz gets the win with a quick roll-up. Then we had Kanyon and Dustin Rhodes in a very fun little brawl as back and forth match, but eventually after about 11 minutes, and during all our interference, Kanyon gets the big win over Dustin Rhodes. Then we have Team Canada defending the titles against Jet and Finlay. Decent match. Awesome pins Jet with the Awesome Bomb in a little over 11 minutes. Then we have the big DDP Helms match. Helms looks good, but DDP is DDP. So, a superb match in about 11 minutes. CB drops him with the Diamond Cutter to get the win. Then, in a big title win, Kidman wins the US title, defeating Shane Douglas in a little over 13 minutes in a good match. And, big moment for Kidman as he becomes the US title. And then let's see here. And then the next match was Jim Dragon Zajac defeating Palumbo and Hair cleanly in a little over 14 minutes in a decent match. None of these four guys are what you call world beaters, as far as in-ring style. But, Jim Dragon Zajac get the win. Then in the big angle, as Sting is coming down to the ring for his match against Vampiro, Vampiro attacks him during the entrance, locks him in a casket, and sets the casket on fire. And as you expect, the match doesn't happen. So there you go, big angle. Then we have our semi-main event, which is Ray Jr. versus Flair. Back and forth match, really good as you expect between, Flair, who's still good in 2001, Ray Jr. But Ray Jr. gets the huge win over, the dirtiest player in the game with a quick cradle in a little under 18 minutes. And then in the main event, Booker takes the abuse from Scott Steiner, but ends up defeating him in 14 minutes with the Harlem Hangover to win the WC World title in a little over 14 minutes, like I said. And the year's champion, Kidman ends the year as the US champion. Team Canada are still the tag champions, and your new Cruiserweight champion is Tajiri. So yeah, this is basically going to be the sort of setup for the series. Nothing too fancy, just so sort of like the history. I'm not going to go over every single show, just sort of a overview of the year, the main players, the big angles. Obviously, as things expand more, this is going to get more expansive. Depending on how, I'm going to try to keep it to a year per video, because going any longer is going to seem silly. But this is basically, what sort of looking for here. A way for anybody who sees this as a 2006 TEW IX as very confused, a way to just get them started and go through things. But that's it. So you'll see the title here. W2001 in under 15 minutes. So that's all for now. If you enjoyed this, go and give it a like, comment below on your thoughts, what I should expand on, what I should cut out, or anything else. Subscribe for more recaps, and then again, the re-beginning of the series in TEW9, basically after I go through the 2001 through the beginning of 2006. But that's all for now, so talk to you later, and adios. Have a good one.